Salut tout le monde et bienvenue pour un autre chapitre de français 101. Welcome back everybody for another week and another chapter of French 101. So this is the first video for chapter 1. Let's go ahead and get started. So by the end of today's video, students will be able to state French phone numbers using numbers up to 100, express activities that they are currently doing or habitually do, list activities they like and dislike, and emphasize and stress the importance of specific people. So, if you have your notes out and ready, and you're ready to start learning, then let's go. C'est parti. Ok, on commence par encore plus de numéros. So here we'll continue on with some new numbers that we haven't learned yet. So, I believe we left off with 59, so let's start off with 60. And remember to repeat after me to practice with pronunciation here. 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68 et 69. So, in the last video where we talked about numbers, I promised you a little bit of math. So here we go. Starting with 70. That's where things start to get a little bit more complicated as far as French numbers go. So rather than having a separate word for 70, we move on from 69 or 69 to 70, 60, 10. 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78 et 79. Okay, and that's not where the math ends, unfortunately, because moving on to 80, we have 80. 80, meaning quite literally 4 20s. Okay. And then we just move on, just like counting all the way up to 29. So 80, 80 ans, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, and you guessed it, 90. So 90 is literally 4, 20, 10. Ensuite, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99 et enfin 100. So 100 is 100. So Now you know all of the numbers all the way up to 100. I know it can be a little bit tricky. It's not really that similar to the numbering systems in other languages, especially in English. So this is understandably a little bit difficult. However, one thing that I do want to point out that this is a French from France numbering system. However, if you went to Belgium, they do have words for 70, 80, and 90. It's septon, octon, et nonante. So if you're familiar with the Belgian singer Angèle, she has an album that's called 95, meaning 95. I believe that was the year she was born. That's pretty sure that's why it's named that. But either way, she's a Belgian singer. And so if you go to Belgium or you live in Belgium, spend time there, you might hear some of these alternative numbers there. Ok, ensuite, un mot sur la couture, c'est aussi une activité. So just a quick cultural note here. So French phone numbers appear in pairs and are said in pairs. So for example, a phone number, the phone number that follows, is said like this: 06 14 36 76 89. So what I'd like you to do is practice using some of these numbers that you've just learned, as well as some of the ones that you've learned in previous lessons. But take a moment here, pause the video, and state the numbers that you see there on the screen. Okay, hopefully you've paused the video here. So let's go over the correct answers here. We have restaurant, le Marrakech. Le numéro de téléphone est 04 93 85 81 55. Ensuite, des gares dans la cuisine, c'est 01 42 74 88 25. Ensuite, couleur café, 03 80 70 10 47. Et enfin, restaurant chez Mireille, 04 93 85 27 23. So, again, this is a good cultural note, but it's also a good way to practice. So, yeah, this is actually how they read their phone numbers in France. Ok, un peu de vocabulaire. Le vocabulaire pour cette partie du chapitre, c'est les verbes qui se terminent en ER. So here we have the vocabulary for this part of the chapter. We have verbs ending in ER. So you'll find that there are 3 distinct types of verbs in French, and generally seen as the easiest or the one that actually has the most are the ER verbs. So here we have several examples. You can pause the video and try to guess the meaning of all of these. But I think they should all be pretty clear. You'll be able to tell. Cuisiner et manger. Cuisiner would be to cook. Manger would be to eat. And then voyager, meaning to travel. Aimer, meaning to love. And then I think those are the only ones that have multiple in the same picture. But I think you'll be able to figure them out based on the pictures. So what you've seen so far is called the infinitive verb. But if we want to use these in a sentence, if we want to use these in the present tense, we want to say that you are doing something, then we're going to have to learn how to conjugate these verbs. So there's a process to this, and it's quite easy, especially for regular ER verbs. but here I'll take you through it using regarder la télévision. So to watch the television is what this says right here. So first things first, we have to get what we call a stem. And how we do this is we remove the ER. So this leaves us with the stem. We have regarde. Then we have to add regular ER endings. And it doesn't matter the verb, all of them end in the same way. So we have each of the categories, they're color-coded there for you as well to hopefully help you to remember these. But here we have the endings being E for first person singular, ES for second person singular, E for third person singular, then ONS for first person plural, EZ for second person plural, and ENT for third person plural. Also, I want to note a little bit about the pronunciation, so feel free to repeat after me. But I think the pronunciation can be a little bit tricky because there's a lot of letters in there that we don't pronounce. So we'll start at the top. Je regarde. Tu regardes. Il regarde. Nous regardons. Vous regardez. Il regarde. So notice that the all of the singular as well as the third person plural are all pronounced the exact same. So that can be a little bit tricky, especially when we have verbs like this that begin with a consonant. Actually, the plural il and el sound the exact same as the singular il and el. So you'll find that if the verb begins with a vowel sound, then you'll hear a liaison there. But in this case, they actually sound the exact same. So we have a couple of minor exceptions here. They're just there strictly for phonetic reasons. So everything in these two stays the same except for the first person plural version. So you'll notice that we add a little something onto the ending, and that's an E. So these are verbs that end in GER. And the reason for that is because in French, like in English, when a G is followed by an E, it makes a zh sound. In English, it's a little bit of a different sound, but either way, it makes this, it changes from a g to a zh. So if we didn't have that E there, we would say nous mangeons. And that's not what we're looking for because the verb itself is manger. So that's the reason why we add the E there. Same for voyager. Without that E on the new form, it would be voyagon. Since the verb is voyager, we want to keep that, and we'll have to add an E there. So this works for all GER verbs. Okay, so what you've learned is the present. C'est le présent. So in English, the present tense can be expressed in three different ways. In French, only one verb is used. So you can see the examples I have here, how these can be translated into English. It's actually much, much simpler in French. So for je travaille, this can be translated as I work, I am working, or I do work. Il joue, this can be translated as they play, they are playing, or they do play. So you'll be able to tell by the context or that I guess the meaning of it, of what they're trying to convey based on the context. So they don't have this sort of continuous way, like I am working, that just doesn't exist in French. Ok, un peu plus de vocabulaire. C'est le vocabulaire complémentaire. So here we have just yet another list of a bunch of common ER verbs, and these are all, like I said, they're very commonly used, so they're worth noting. If you want to take a moment here and pause the video so that you can write some of them down, you will be using these later on in the course, so it might be a good idea. But again, these are all regular, so they will be conjugated the exact same way as what you've seen in the past. And you just drop the ER and add the endings. So I encourage you to look at it that way, where you're dropping the ER. Some students, because a lot of the endings have an E, they tend to want to say, oh, I'll just drop the R. And if you can remember that we don't have an E in the new form, then you can look at it that way. But I just think it's a much more true way of looking at it by dropping the ER and then adding the endings. So a couple of other words here we have on the purple note here. We have pendant, meaning during. La semaine is the week. Et le weekend is the weekend. So another quick note here before we move on. Know that passer un examen means to take an exam, not to pass an exam. So in French, to pass an exam is réussir à un examen. So this is kind of a false friend. Passer un examen is to take one, and rater un examen would be to fail. Ok. Ensuite, 2 questions pour vous. Donc, que fais-tu pendant la semaine? Et que fais-tu pendant le week-end? So here, what I'd like you to do is practice using some of these verbs. I would recommend writing them down. Make sure that you're using the appropriate pronouns. So it should start with je, and then you'll fill in the blank, basically. Je parle avec mes amis, for example. Ou je joue les jeux. I play games. Or je joue au football. I play soccer. So you'll want to do some. You're going to want to use as many verbs as you can. Tell me what you do during the week and during the weekend, because maybe they're different. Okay, let's move on. Okay, sometimes 2 verbs can be used together to express an idea. In these cases, the first verb is conjugated and the second verb is in its infinitive form. Some common verbs that can be followed by an infinitive are adorer, aimer, aimer mieux, et détester. So a couple of examples of this. J'aime étudier le français. So I like to study French. Nous détestons danser. We hate to dance. So here you can see that it's actually quite similar in English. So we have I like followed by the infinitive. So we have to study, to dance. So this isn't all that different. It's just that in French, the infinitive is only one word. Donc, 2 autres questions. Qu'aimes-tu faire? Que détestes-tu faire? So what do you like to do and what do you dislike doing? So here you can, you don't have to necessarily conjugate the second verb. You have to conjugate instead the first verb. Okay. So here you could have said anything. I'm going to hope that you did the activity there. So next we have negation, la négation. So to make a sentence negative, place ne or an apostrophe before vowel sound, before the conjugated verb, and pas after it. So remember, there's always 2 portions to the negation. You always have to have the one before it and the one after it. So, deux exemples. Je ne regarde pas la télé. I don't watch TV. Vous n'étudiez pas le week-end. you don't study this weekend or on the weekend? So in the case of two verbs used together, the ne and the pas goes around the first conjugated verb. So an example here, je n'aime pas danser. I don't like to dance. Ok, la question, est-ce que tu aimes? Est-ce que tu aimes cuisiner, par exemple? So use this structure to find out someone's likes and dislikes. This is a good way of asking somebody what they like to do. So what I would like you to do now is to write an appropriate caption for the two photos that you see on the screen. So imagine that you've been asked the following question: Est-ce qu'elle aime cuisiner? So there we have two different options here. Okay, let's see if you came up with the same thing that I did. So on that top one, elle n'aime pas cuisiner. So here she clearly doesn't like it. On peut dire aussi, elle déteste cuisiner. That would work as well. But on the second one, elle aime cuisiner. It's clear that she likes to cook. Okay, so now we have les pronoms disjoints. Here, you've already learned about pronouns in French. You've learned the subject pronouns. We have je, tu, il, elle, on, nous, vous, il, elle, plural. So we're already familiar with these, but there are other types of pronouns in language as well. Another category of pronouns is called les pronoms disjoints or stressed pronouns. So here we have sort of the equivalent based on the perspective. So we have je, so the first person singular. The pronom disjoint is moi. Tu is toi. Il becomes lui. Elle remains elle. Nous remains nous. Vous remains vous. Il becomes eux. And elle, plural, remains elle. So how are they used? They're used after prepositions and conjunctions like et, mais, meaning but, à, de, or pour. They can also begin the sentence to stress the subject. So we'll see some examples of this here in just a moment. Alex et toi, vous étudiez ce soir? So here we're saying Alex and you. Are you both studying tonight? So another one. Moi, je suis américain ou américaine. So here I'm trying to stress I'm talking about me. Or moi, je suis américain. Et toi, tu es américain? Here, je pense beaucoup à elle. So here we see that this is following a preposition. So here in this case, à is sort of translated as of. So you think a lot about them. Stressed pronouns are also used after c'est and ce sont. So here we have a question. Perhaps we're on the telephone or we don't know Mark and we're saying, c'est Marc? Oui, c'est lui. So is this Mark? Yes, it's him. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice this. So here we have some sentences. I'd like you to fill in the blanks. We have, once again, I think we can kind of imagine that this is over the telephone. So we have the first question followed by a response. Okay, hopefully you paused the video and completed the activity. So let's go ahead and go through it. C'est Richard? Oui, c'est lui. Ce sont Marc et Alain? Oui, ce sont eux. C'est Fatima? Oui, c'est elle. C'est toi, Diane? Oui, c'est moi. Tu penses beaucoup à moi? Oui, je pense beaucoup à toi. Tu penses souvent à Nicolas et Anne? Oui, je pense souvent à elle. À Nicole. Sorry, Nicole, pas Nicolas. So those are both two females. Okay, very good work today. Hopefully you've learned something. So now it's time for you to head over to MindTap as well as the discussion boards and get to work on those. As always, please let me know if you have any questions. And merci et à bientôt. Ciao.